We're going to get started. So just want to see if everyone
Whenever you want that exclusive.
Larry, could you just make sure you're on the mic on the, that it's coming out loud? Yeah. Yep.
Excuse me, because it's not between.
Can everyone hear me?
No.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome and thank everyone for coming today. My name is Larry Ellison. I'm the president of MAMLEO. MAMLEO is the Massachusetts Association of Minority Law Enforcement Officers. Just to give you a little historical perspective, MAMLEO has been around since 1968, and most of that tenure has been here at 61 Columbia Road here in Dorchester. MAMLEO today, after careful consideration and prayer, and exhaustive efforts for diversity and equality in the Boston Police Department, the Massachusetts Association of Minority Law Enforcement, for the following reasons, have voted and declared a vote of no confidence in Commissioner Ed Davis and his administration for the following reasons. Just some of the reasons, I'm sorry. Since Commissioner Davis' appointment by Mayor Menino, progress for officers of color have regressed substantially. But we are not surprised, for his record as chief in Lowell was not much better when it comes to officers of color. MAMLEO has met with Commissioner Davis during his tenure with very little success in the area of minorities and women. Currently in the city of Boston is approximately 53% people of color, and yet the supervisory level of the police department, those numbers are not reflected. The commissioner will tout his 40% command staff of color, but we see that as don't ask for more. There are currently no captains of color serving as such, and only a handful of lieutenants in the Boston Police Department. And yet, during Davis's early tenure, he had the opportunity to promote 2 black lieutenants and 1 female sergeant to the rank of lieutenant. They all had the same scores as their white counterparts, and yet he chose to promote none. Every effort to express to the commissioner the importance of diversity, a diversified police department, have been met with opposition. Yes, we have had some movement, but only after drawn-out litigation and public outcry. Commissioner Davis' most recent treatment last week by demoting Detective Brewster in an unprecedented manner in which due process was not afforded Detective Brewster shows another example of his unfair treatment when it comes to officers of color.
All right.
Commissioner Davis also last week, to add insult to injury, on Friday at noontime promoted 5 white supervisors to the rank of sergeant, when there were 9 people of color who had the same mark. The commissioner will argue at times that civil service prohibits him from bypassing anyone to that rank. Well, all these folks had the same score. Everyone here was equal. So our message is he sends out, and then at 5 o'clock, after outrage from MAMLEO and other elected officials as well as the public, the commissioner decided to promote 2 officers of color to the rank of sergeant. The message was clear, separate and unequal.
All right.
These orders came out on separate agendas, folks. You have one list with 5 white officers at 12 o'clock. The other list came out at 5 p.m., 12 o'clock with the white officers. At 5 p.m. it came out with 2 black officers. And then we know in the department that's in the very sick message that these people are some affirmative action promotion. They have the same marks as their counterparts. They are sergeants. MAMLEO and the community stand here today, united, and not only is Commissioner Davis removed from the Boston Police Department, but assuring he does not take his behavior on a national level. Under Commissioner Davis, the complaints that the MCH by officers of color have more than doubled. Just to give you an idea, this has been going on. I've been the president for the last 5 years. Just some of the people that we have met prior, they'll try to tell you that this is a one-time thing. We have met with MCAD on numerous times regarding these matters, as well as the U.S. Attorney, various elected officials, including the Mayor Menino, regarding the disparities, and not much has changed. Commissioner Davis' actions in front of the crowd last week in South Boston has only made things worse between communities that already have a somewhat strained relationship when it comes to race. I just want to give you some points here on what we tried. It took us 3 years to get a person of color, a sergeant, to the gang unit, which is predominantly patrols communities of color. 3 years, and there is still only one sergeant of color in that unit. That's a disgrace. It took us 7 years to get a Hispanic lieutenant with a law degree promoted to the rank of lieutenant detective. 7 years. At that time, there were people who weren't even on the job in that rank who had been promoted prior to him. The most senior lieutenant in the Boston Police Department, Lieutenant King, who was finally promoted yesterday to his deserved rank of lieutenant detective, with over 35 years in the Boston Police Department, was finally given his just desert.
35 years.
35 plus years. Okay? The police commissioner, with the prodding of MAMLEO and other community and elected officials, established a diversity committee over 2 years ago. There's been no action plan and has not met in over 8 months. That's his commitment to diversity. Commissioner Davis's answer is to blame civil service and the courts for his shortcomings, but he cannot, they belong to him and the mayor.
Right.
In closing, let me be perfectly clear to any candidate running for mayor in the city of Boston who has declared to keep Davis as their commissioner, we will oppose you vigorously. Mike Ross, who is the chairman of the public safety, the city councilor, Councilor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank MAMLEO for hosting us today. I'm here today to call attention to the lack of diversity at our police department, especially at the top levels. Last week, I received a call from one of our daily papers asking for a comment on the fact that while 9 of the 21 officers who tied for the top scores on the sergeant exam were candidates of color, the Boston Police Department was only promoting 5 white men. I said that that was unacceptable, and so did the Massachusetts Association of Minority Law Enforcement Officers. The next day, BPD announced they were promoting 2 of the African American candidates as well. That's good, but it shouldn't have to take an outcry from the public to make it happen.
Right.
This isn't about a single class of promotions. Diversity is a problem in the Boston Police Department. There are not enough women or people of color serving, and there aren't enough in positions of leadership.
Right.
It's not acceptable that we don't have a single woman serving as a senior superintendent. It's not acceptable that we do not have a single district captain who is a person of color.
Right.
It's not acceptable that the minority percentages of the total sworn strength has declined over the last 10 years. This needs to change, and when I'm mayor, it will change. Earlier this week, I released a comprehensive and innovative plan to reduce violence and address public safety. A key part of that plan was a number of ideas to modernize our police department. Ideas like creating more police substations, especially in high crime areas, so that people know where to find the police in their neighborhood. To join cities like New York and Chicago by giving all police handheld wireless devices, to eliminate the need to go back to the police station to file paperwork, keeping officers on the street longer, to get cops out of their cars and onto the streets by encouraging more foot and bike patrols so that police build face-to-face relationships along street corners, storefronts, and stoops. But one of the ideas that might be the most innovative, but is also the most simple, is our police department needs to look like the community it serves. Community policing only works if the police are truly a part of the community.
Right.
Diversity isn't just a buzzword. Different perspectives and different approaches should be valued at the most senior level. That's not happening now, and as mayor, I'll make sure it does. At its heart, the police department operates on a system of trust. The trust between the police officer and the communities they serve and protect. Greater diversity increases that trust and helps police do their job. Listen, it's easy to make proposals, but this is something I deeply believe in. My office has always made diversity a priority. I've always had a bilingual office. I've always had a diverse office. Twice the highest ranking position in my office has been filled by African American leaders from our city. In the long run, I think it made my office a better place. It will make the Boston Police Department a better place. It will make our city a better place. Thank you very much.
Before I introduce our next speaker, I just want to acknowledge a few people out here who work very hard. Lenny Alkins, a former NAACP. The Mothers for Justice, Priscilla and Sarah Flynn. And representatives from the Grove Hall, Mecca, Sister, I'm drawing a blank here, Virginia, I don't know why. Sister Virginia, I didn't want to acknowledge you. Thank you. I want to now, and also acknowledge my board of directors to my right. Thank you folks for come stepping up. No, folks, it takes courage because we all still work for the Boston Police Department. But I tell you, we strap on a gun, our badge, we put on our vest, and we go out there and we serve this city. And we will not be treated as second-class citizens when we walk through that door of the Boston Police Department. We have every right as anyone else to be a member, a proud member of the Boston Police Department. Last night in attendance, we had a meeting here, and those of you here, if you weren't shocked, when I asked all the members of the Boston Police Department to stand, and again today, I don't want to call you out, but all the members of the Boston Police Department that are here today, would you please stand? Thank you for your service. I now want to introduce the current president of the NAACP, Michael Curry. Michael.
Thank you, Larry. First, I'll start by just a quick introduction to the NAACP. A lot of folks are vaguely familiar with what the organization does, but I want to make sure you understand what our role is in this conversation. The NAACP Boston branch is the oldest branch in the country. People don't know that. We are 102 years old. The first branch in the country was started here in Boston. That's important to remember. Lenny Alkins, Larry mentioned Lenny Alkins, who's sitting there straight ahead of me. Lenny, for many years, was president. I think you served over a decade as president of the Boston branch. And just quick round of applause for the work that this man did on behalf of our community. I can tell you as a young activist, much of my time working for Lenny in those early years was in this office, was in this building with Ken Dodabo and a lot of the other officers as Lenny tried to work on issues facing the law enforcement in this community. So it's interesting to return many years later and we still have the same issues. The role of the NAACP, very important for you to remember when Councilor Ross said that diversity is an issue within law enforcement of the Boston Police Department. I want to sort of challenge that a little bit, and I agree with Councilor Ross, but diversity is an issue in the city of Boston. I want to make sure people don't get lost in the specifics around Boston Police. I want to urge you, come sit in our office for a day and watch the people who come through our office to file discrimination complaints in housing, public accommodation, in employment, fire department, police department. We've had Boston police officers file complaints with us.
Education.
In education. So the reality is this is not just the police department. This is a city problem.
Yeah.
Now, I want to make sure we understand that because we're going to deal with the crisis of discrimination in the city of Boston. You got to deal with all of it.
That's right.
Right? So the challenge we have now is to identify where the discrimination exists and to address it. When I came on board as president about 3 years ago, Lenny said to me, make sure you get a sit down with the commissioner immediately. And I did that. The commissioner promised that the NAACP would be involved in the conversation around recruitment and retention and the disciplinary policies for officers of color. The commissioner promised that we'd be involved in the diversity training for young cadets coming into the Boston Police Department. The police commissioner promised to me that he would keep me informed on issues as they arise in communities of color that we need to know about. I'm standing here to tell you today that the commissioner has not delivered on those promises.
All right.
I've had 2 years of operating in good faith with the commissioner that we would work together to address the issues in our community, but he has not done that. There's a letter that hopefully you have a copy of that came from, signed by the Boston NAACP. We also asked our President Emeritus, Lenny August, to sign this letter as well, like President Ellison, calling on the commissioner to deliver on his promise on diversity. And we are in lockstep with MAMLEO to make sure that the Boston Police Department reflects the diversity of the city. Why is this important? And again, I'm going to tell you, some people sort of in and out of this topic, but we're in it every day. So here's why it matters. I've had Boston police officers tell me that the gang unit violates the rights of our kids on the street.
Right.
Why you need a black officer is you need more people of color in the room to say, hey, that's not, you're violating their rights. Well, this policy doesn't work for our community.
That's right.
We don't have that seat at the leadership table within the Boston Police Department. When it comes to policies, use of force and so forth, we need officers of color at the table to make sure that they work for our communities. That's why it matters. And no one's really said that yet. We need to know that there are people who look like us in these positions so they do the right thing by us.
Right.
That's the work of the NAACP. We are, again, President Ellison, the rest of MAMLEO, we are in lockstep with you to make sure we address this issue, and we're very thankful to be here and part of this press conference.
I want to acknowledge Councilor Yancey. I know he just came in. I know he spoke out about this in the paper the other day, and if he had a few words he wanted to add to the conversation. Councilor Yancey.
Thank you very much, President Ellison. Sorry I couldn't get here earlier, but I couldn't miss it. Because even though I had a couple of people from my campaign team in the audience representing me, it's very important that I be here personally. Because this is an issue that's not new in the city of Boston.
Right.
When I was chair of the Public Safety Committee of the City Council, it was an issue then. When I was first elected to the Boston City Council in 1983, it was an issue then.
Right.
Here we are 30 years later, dealing with many of the same issues of disparate treatment of people of color and women within the police department. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to know where the crime and violence is taking place and not allocate appropriate resources to address it. It's not acceptable to have the high rates of unsolved homicides in the city of Boston. It's not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
So while I know that the police commissioner is perhaps doing the best that he can, it's not enough. And we must create a city and create a police department that respects everyone, respects every community, and reflects the entire demographic makeup of the city of Boston, from the highest level to the lowest level and every position in between. How can we have a city of Boston that's 53% people of color and not have one person of color heading up any of the 11 police districts in the city of Boston? And don't believe for a moment that I'm only mentioning this because of this press conference. For 30 years, I've been raising the same issue. Sometimes 2 people are listening, sometimes 3. Sometimes the commissioner or his designee are in the office, are in the chambers when we raise this issue. The most recent hearing we held was in December with the police department. And I was astounded that the representatives for the police department seemed irritated because we allowed the NAACP, the Mass Commission Against Discrimination, MAMLEO, and others to testify before they testified. Well, I do things a little differently in City Hall.
All right.
I want to hear from the people who want to set the stage, and I want to set the tone.
Go ahead.
And require the administration to answer the very legitimate questions that have been raised. Now, with regards to the matter before us today, with all due respect to MAMLEO, I'm not offering any opinion at all concerning the Amy Lord case. But what I will say is that this community deserves to be treated with the same sense of urgency when someone dies in this community.
That's right.
I offer my condolences to the Lord family. I did place a call to her mother. And I believe that if there's anything we can do to take these dangerous characters off the streets of Boston, we should do it immediately. Because not to do so puts the rest of the city at risk and in jeopardy. So I feel the same about all the other homicides that have taken place right here in this community and the rest of the city of Boston. We must end the day where the assumption is that it's okay to look the other way if the violence is taking place in the communities of color. It's not okay. We must change the dynamic that says that if a young African American or Latino male dies or female dies in the city of Boston, it's treated almost as an afterthought. Those lives are valuable.
Right.
That's someone's son or daughter.
Right.
And we bleed just like everybody else, and we grieve just like everyone else. And this community steps up like any other community in the city of Boston. I've been to countless community meetings where we have hundreds of residents and very little media because we're challenging the violence in our society. I've been to thousands, literally thousands of marches and vigils in this community over the last 30 years. Most of them, the media is not even present. I'm glad the media is here today. I hope they pay attention to what MAMLEO is saying, because I have the utmost respect and admiration for all of our police officers, particularly those officers who are courageous enough not only to put their lives on the line for complete strangers, but who are courageous enough to challenge even their own superiors within the police department and risking their careers. Something's happening here for someone to make those type of risks, and we must support them.
Right.
So thank you very much, President Ellison. Sorry I couldn't get here earlier, but I certainly support all your goals and objectives. Congratulations.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. I just want to say, because I think it's very important, Councilor Yancey's right, he's been fighting quite vigorously for the community, and he's part of the diversity panel, and the disrespect at those meetings that Police Commissioner Davis has shown to an elected official, Councilor Yancey, is appalling, and I've been there, and he should be ashamed of himself for doing so. So, in closing, I'm going to add to him saying, this is not just a meeting, folks, this is a movement. And these folks that are elected elected and appointed, they work for us.
That's right.
Okay? I want everyone in here to contact the mayor's office and the police commissioner's office and demand change. The number for the police commissioner's office is 617-343-4500. 617-343-4500. You have a right to know why officers of color who are part of the community are not treated with the respect that they deserve. The mayor's office, 635-4000. 635-4000. And if there are any questions from the media as regards to me, I'll either take them now or offline. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming. This is not the end of it. This is the beginning. We've been fighting this for quite a long time, and folks need to understand, if we, remember this, if we as members of this department are not treated with the respect that we deserve, you wonder why the community is not. Thank you.
I have a question. How far MAMLEO willing to go to make these people of perceived power stop doing what they're doing? Are you willing to put your jobs on the line? Are you willing to have work stoppages? Are you willing to march to City Hall if you have to, with guns or without, doesn't bother me, until we stop this foolishness that's going on? How far is MAMLEO?
I can commit to you that MAMLEO will do everything that is lawfully eligible to do. We are still law enforcement officers. We will not break the law, but we will do everything, and we will continue to do what we're doing, but we will fight this lawfully as far as we can go. So if it is not legal to do so, we will be there.
What was the message, what would MAMLEO's message to the Department of Homeland Security be in there considering anything?
Why would you want someone taking care of the homeland when you can't take care of it right here at home?
He could, but he refuses to.
Well, absolutely. Any other questions?
What are the next steps?
We've already started. We're 3 steps ahead of you. So we're at step 4 and 5. So we're going to keep this going. Again, folks, we've got our eye on it. MAMLEO is a nonprofit. We don't endorse candidates on behalf of MAMLEO, but it doesn't mean we have to remain silent. And it doesn't mean this community has to remain silent. People are counting on your vote. They're counting on you not to pay attention. They're counting on your lack of attention to these matters. They figure it's a summer. They're going to sneak it by you. Normally, MAMLEO does not meet in the summer. We haven't taken a day off. Okay? For some reason, they thought last week I was on vacation, that the MAMLEO was a rudderless ship. The administration here showed them that they were, because the communication is worldwide.
I just really want to say, for the energy of the crowd, what we're about to embark upon in terms of social media supporting this is the campaign to demote Davis. Demote Davis.
All right. I think Mike Curry had some, I'll take your question while Mike is coming up.
Just one point I wanted to make, because I think the benefit of the NAACP is we're a national organization. So right after the bombing at the marathon, I got a call from the national NAACP asking about our relationship with our police department. So that letter that we just handed out is going to Rosalind Brock, the chairwoman of the board at NAACP, as well as President Ben Jealous. So any aspirations to move beyond the city of Boston, we will have the force of the national NAACP to address the fact that diversity is not happening here and will likely not happen if folks move on to a higher level as well. So I wanted to address that.
I didn't think you said about this protective group. You know, what MAMLEO in our community can do,
That's an ongoing investigation. I don't have all the particulars on that, but what you can do, I can tell you that it is unprecedented that type of punishment is meted out that quickly. Okay, it did not go through the normal due process that people would be afforded if this incident took place.
We can't let them get away with it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Have you heard from the mayor's office or the county's office?
far as their position?
You know when you call and you say that number is not in service? That's what we get. It includes that we had a meeting, Councilor Yancey chaired it back in December, and it was really, those of you who weren't there, this is not like, and Mike was right, this is not just a problem here in the Boston Police Department. This is one that we're familiar with, and that's why we're highlighting it. But you can bring in any department head, there are very few of color, any agency in the city, and it will be the same problems with upward mobility for people of color and women.
Are you saying that this is not the first time that there have been promotions from a list where people who are white and non-white all have the same scores and only whites have been promoted?
To answer
Can you
you-
give us information?
In 2000, there was a test from 2005 in which they, at the time, before the list expired, they were making another round of promotions. There were 2 sergeants of color and a female, at which time there were no female lieutenants in the Boston Police Department. People went to the commissioner and employed him for the lack of diversity that he should consider those 2 officers of color and the female. He promoted all the white males from that list and let the list die with those 2 officers of color and the female on it.
This is in 2000?
This was from the 2005 exam.
And the next exam
Was the 2008, and that's the current one in which they're promoted from, in which this incident took place last week.
And there were 21 officers hired for the top.
Total, 9 of color. Yes.
I just wanted to ask, so if there's discrimination within the police department, what type of assurances does the community have that the community is not being discriminated against as well by the same higher-ups that are discriminating against their own officers?
Well, that's why it's important for us to inform and educate you. Don't be fooled because you see us riding around in a car that we really have the authority that others do. That it's important for you to be able to be connected with your police department. So if you have to understand, if we're not connected and we're not part of it, don't think they're bringing you in.
Right. What kinds of collaboration do you all have to do with the state police or the T police also pushing the same?
Several of the T police are part of this organization. The minority state police officers are an extension of MAMLEO. Their office is housed here, so we work very closely. They're experiencing the same problems. Our members from Brockton, this is not, but Boston is polarized because when there is opportunity to do the right thing, they normally choose to do the wrong. It's always a fight. I want to thank Councilor Ross and Councilor Yancey, their statements last week and standing up for this, you know, when the other folks did not. So we have to look at our elected officials, and I'm very disappointed at quite a few of them because they all showed up and they said, this is not Roxbury, Dorchester against South Boston. Again, I'm like the councilor, I applaud the responses South Boston gets, but everyone should get the same response. Okay, we have to stop electing officials who just want to make sure that they have a job. Again, thank you, Councilor Ross. Thank you, Councilor Yancey, for your continued effort in this. If there are no other questions, we're going to conclude the press conference. Do you have a question?
I just wanted to say that Brother Charles was here.
Yes, he was.
Yes, but he had to go to.
No, we're talking, and right, I'm sorry, Brother Charles was running for mayor, he was here last evening. You know, we're talking about the people who already have the job and should be doing this. Thank you, everyone, for coming.